If you think you know too much,
You think you know more than you do. That might sound uncomfortable, but it's one of the most important truths you can understand about your own mind. This is not an insult. It's something almost everyone experiences at some point in their life, including you, including me. And once you understand it, the way you think about learning, confidence, and even intelligence will completely change. Let me ask you something. Have you ever learned something new, maybe from a video, a book, or even a short conversation, and suddenly felt like you understood everything about it? You start explaining it to other people, you feel confident, maybe even a little proud, like you figured something out, but then a few days later, something shifts. You realize there are gaps in your understanding. You struggle to explain it clearly, and slowly, that confidence starts to fade. That moment is more important than it looks, because what you felt before wasn't real understanding. It was the illusion of understanding. And the dangerous part is that your brain is very good at creating that illusion. It simplifies things quickly. It gives you a clear answer so you can make you hold on. Our brain is designed to make the world easier to process, not necessarily more accurate. When something feels simple, your brain stops questioning it, it stops searching. And that's where growth quietly ends, not because you can't learn more, but because you think you already know enough. What's interesting is this doesn't just happen in small situations. It can lead people to make decisions that feel completely logical to them, but look unbelievable from the outside. And one real story explains this better than anything else. In 1995, two men walked into a bank in the middle of the day and robbed it. No masks, no disguise, nothing. They weren't nervous or confused. They were calm, almost relaxed. The reason is what makes this story unforgettable. They believed they were invisible. One of them had learned that lemon juice could be used as invisible ink, so he made a simple conclusion: if it makes writing invisible, maybe it can make faces invisible too. He even tested it with a camera and somehow convinced himself it worked, so they walked into a bank fully believing no one could see them. Of course, they were arrested just a few hours later. The cameras captured everything clearly, but here's the part that matters. They weren't guessing, they weren't unsure, they were confident, completely confident. But here's the part most people miss. This wasn't just a strange mistake. It revealed something much deeper about how the human mind works. And once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere, especially in yourself. This case caught the attention of a psychologist named David Dunning. He realized something simple but powerful. When people don't know much about something, they also don't know how much they don't know. In other words, the less you understand, the harder it is to recognize your own mistakes. This became known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it explains a pattern you see every day. People with very little knowledge often feel the most confident, while people with deeper understanding tend to feel less certain, not because they are less capable, but because they can see the complexity others can't. There is a specific stage in learning where this becomes dangerous. It's the moment when you know just enough to feel confident, but not enough to understand the full picture. At this stage, everything feels clear. Your brain says, "I get it," and that feeling is powerful. And this is exactly where things start to go wrong. Not because people are trying to be wrong, but because they don't realize they've stopped learning. At this point, people begin to speak with certainty. They give advice, they argue, they make decisions based on limited understanding. And because they feel confident, they don't feel the need to question themselves. This is how false ideas spread. Not through ignorance, but through misplaced confidence. But if you keep learning, something changes. You start to notice details you didn't see before. You find contradictions. You realize things are more complex than they first appeared. And suddenly your confidence drops. You begin to question yourself. It feels like you know less than before. But that feeling is not failure. It's progress. Because now you're seeing reality more clearly. You're no longer trapped in a simple explanation. You're beginning to understand depth. The problem is, many people stop here. They walk away because the confusion feels uncomfortable, but those who continue move into a different level of thinking. But if that's true, then something else becomes interesting. Why is it that the people who actually understand things deeply often seem less confident, not more? If you've ever felt like you're not as smart as you should be, or like others understand things better than you, you're not alone. In fact, this feeling is often a sign of deeper awareness. When you understand complexity, simple answers no longer feel enough. Research in psychology shows that people with higher levels of understanding often underestimate their abilities, while those with limited knowledge tend to overestimate theirs. This happens because awareness changes perception. The more you see, the more you realize how much there is to see. So that feeling you sometimes have that you don't know enough might not be a weakness at all. It might be a sign that your thinking is becoming more accurate. This is also why thoughtful people tend to overthink. Their minds don't settle for easy answers. They explore possibilities. They replay situations. They question assumptions. While this can feel exhausting, it also means they are processing the world more deeply. Which leads to the real question. If your brain can trick you into false confidence and also pull you into doubt, how do you stay balanced? The answer is not to eliminate confidence or doubt, it's to build awareness. The first step is becoming comfortable saying, I don't know, not as a weakness, but as a strength. Because the moment you admit you don't fully understand something, you create space to actually learn it. The second step is to question your own thinking. Instead of asking, do I understand this? Ask, can I explain this clearly, or what am I missing? This forces your brain to go deeper. It moves you beyond surface level understanding. The third step is to stay curious. Curiosity keeps your mind flexible. It allows you to update your beliefs when new information appears. It keeps you from becoming stuck in ideas that feel true but aren't complete. Because the goal is not to know everything. That's impossible. The goal is to keep learning, to keep questioning, and to remain open to the idea that there is always more to understand. And once you see this clearly, something shifts. You stop trying to prove that you are right, and you start trying to understand what is true. And once that shift happens, you start to notice something subtle. The people who grow the most are not the ones who talk the most, but the ones who keep questioning even when they feel sure. And if this made you pause for a moment, if it made you question something you thought you understood, then you're already moving in the right direction.